Hello and welcome to the Myschool channel. My name is Angela, and in this video we're going to be tackling the English language JAMB question for the year 2025. Please don't go anywhere, stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Myschool channel. Like I said earlier, we are tackling the English language JAMB question for the year 2025. So in this video, we are going to be focusing on questions 158 to 182. Please note that questions 158 to 162 comes with a comprehension passage, so I advise you to go down to the link in the description below. This takes you to the Myschool website where you can access the comprehension passage, or you can pause the video as soon as the comprehension passage is displayed on your screen. Please do not forget that the aim is to read, to understand, pinpoint the main ideas, and then get back to the question. So let's begin with question 158. One of the first things a child notices in birds is A, noise, B, nests, C, feeding traits, and D, color. So the answer to this question is option A, noise, and we can see that it is explicitly stated in the passage in paragraph 1. It says one of the first things that a child notices is how noisy many kinds of birds are. It also goes ahead to explain the various types of noise that they make, the characteristic calls they make. So this makes option A, noise, the answer to this question. Question 159. What makes it easy to identify a species of birds in the wood? A, the shape of their beaks, B, their characteristic calls with practice, C, their mode of feeding, and D, the color of their feathers. So the answer to this question is option B, their characteristic calls with practice, and we can also see that explicitly stated in the passage. Even while they are feeding, many birds make characteristic calls, and with practice you can tell which species are in the wood just from these calls without seeing the birds at all. So this makes option B, their characteristic calls with practice, the answer to this question. Question 160. Flocks of finches could easily become separated, A, when they get injured by other birds, B, when they get hungry after being separated from other birds, C, when they see predators hovering in the sky, and D, when they hunt for insects or seeds on the branches of trees. The answer to this question is option D, when they hunt for insects or seeds on the branches of trees. Again, we can see that explicitly stated in the passage. It says when flocks of finches are looking for insects or seeds on the branches of trees, they could easily become separated, and these calls must help keep the birds together. This makes option D the answer to this question. Question 161. The small birds have A, a particular type of call, B, different alarm calls, C, a similar alarm call, and D, sonorous songs. So the answer to this question is option A particular type of call. And again, we can see that in the passage. In paragraph 2 of the passage, it says a small bird will give its flying predator calls as an alarm to other birds in the neighborhood. So a flying predator call is a specific type of call. It's a particular type of call that is specific to small birds when they want to alarm other birds in the neighborhood of a predator hovering in the sky. So option A particular type of call, is the answer to this question. Question 162. When a bird of prey is sighted, a small bird A flies away, B starts making a nest, C hides in its nest, and D calls its mates. So the answer to this question is option D, calls its mates. And again, we can see that in paragraph 2 of the passage. At the sight of a bird of prey, a small bird will give its flying predator call as an alarm to other birds in the neighborhood. So this means that when they see a bird of prey, a predatory bird hovering in the sky, the small bird will alert all its other mates, all the other small birds in the neighborhood of this particular bird of prey. So this makes option D, calls its mates, the answer to this question. Questions 163 to 172 comes with a language register passage. So once again, I would advise you to go down to the link in the description below. This takes you to my school website where you can access the language register passage, or you can pause the video as soon as the passage is displayed on your screen. Please do not forget that the aim is to read, to understand, and then get back to the question. Now on to question 163. Fill the gap labeled 6, A, unit, B, council, C, department, and D, committee. So let's read the sentence where the gap is in. The security dash has a primary responsibility under the UN Charter for the maintenance of international dash and dash. So in this context, in the context of this sentence, we understand that they are talking about a branch of the United Nations. They are talking about the UN Charter. The UN Charter is that body of documents that brings the United Nations into being. So they are talking about the United Nations here. And one of the departments of the United Nations is the Security Council. It is not the Security Unit, the Security Department, or the Security Committee. It is the Security Council. So option B, Council, is the answer to this question. Question 164. Fill the gap labeled 7. A, relation, B, affairs, C, peace, and D, relationship. Again, we're going to look at the sentence. Remember, the Security Council has a primary responsibility under the UN Charter for the maintenance of international dash and dash. So the answer to this question is option C, peace. So the maintenance of international peace and security is one of the articles under the United Nations Charter. So the maintenance of international peace and security should be that phrase. So option C, peace, is the answer to this question. Question 165. Fill the gap labeled 8. A, safety, B, unity, C, security, and D, progress. So the answer to this question is option C, security. Like we said earlier, the Security Council has a primary responsibility under the UN Charter for the maintenance of international peace and security. It is one of the articles in the UN Charter, the maintenance of international peace and security. It's also important to note that in international discourse, the maintenance of peace and security is a common topic of discussion. So peace and security, they go together. So option C, security, is the answer to this question. Question 166. Fill the gap labeled 9. A, member, B, personnel, C, members, and D, states. So again, we have to look at the context of the sentence in which it is used. It has 15 dash. Each member has 1 dash. So from the context of this sentence, we understand that they are talking about nations that belong to the United Nations. So the nations that belong to this international organization are referred to as members or member states. So in this case, option C, members, is the correct option to fill in that gap because we are looking for a plural, right? Because they are referring to 15 nations in this case. So option C, members, should fill in that gap. Option C is the answer to this question. Question 167. Fill the gap labeled 10. A, assent, B, vote, C, consent, and D, voice. So again, we have to look at the context in which it is used. They are talking about how each member has 1 dash. So in the context of the United Nations, every nation that belongs to the United Nations has 1 vote. The ability to make decisions on certain issues, they all have 1 vote, so that when there is a consensus, they can make decisions on what to do as a group. So option B, votes, is the best option to fill in that gap. Question 168. Fill in the gap labeled 11. A, charter, B, league, C, unit, and D, directorate. So from the sentence under the dash, all member states are obligated to comply with council decisions. Remember what we said earlier, how the UN Charter is the document that brings the international organization, the United Nations, into being. It also contains the rules and regulations of the organization. And so the best option to fill in this gap is the Charter. The UN Charter is where it is stated that all members are obligated to comply with council decisions, one of the rules and regulations of the organization. So option B, league, is the answer to this question. Question 169. Fill in the gap labeled 12. Option A, threats, B, agitation, C, violence, and D, fear. So again, we have to look at the sentence in which the word is supposed to be used. So the Security Council takes the lead in determining the existence of a dash to the peace or acts of aggression. So the best option to fill in this gap is option A, threats. So whenever there is something that connotes danger to the peace and security of the international organization, it is referred to as a threat. So a threat is a very common word that is used in discourse among members of the United Nations. So option A, threat, is the answer to this question. Question 170. Fill in the gap labeled 13. A, people, B, states, C, entity, and D, parties. Again, to fill in this gap, you have to read the sentence in which it is used. It calls upon the dash to a dispute to settle it by peaceful means and recommends methods of adjustments or terms of dash. So in this particular sentence, they are talking about a a resolution to a dispute that occurs between two or more entities. So the word that is usually used in legal terms is referred to as parties. So when there is a dispute between two parties, they have to call for a resolution to those disputes. So option D, parties, is the answer to this question. Question 171. Fill the gap labeled 14. A, settlement, B, agreement, C, consent, and D, condition. Again, we have to look at the sentence in which it is used. It calls upon the parties to a dispute to settle it by peaceful means and recommends methods of adjustment or terms of dash. So the word that should fill in this gap is settlement. So when we're talking about settlement, we are talking about those items that both parties agree on that will help to resolve the conflict, the things that needs to be done by both parties to help to resolve the conflict. So option A, settlement, is the answer to this question. Do you know you can take practice questions with our JAMB submitted CBT past question? All you need to do is to go down to the link in the description below. This takes you to the Myschool website where you can download the Myschool mobile app for your Android devices and iPhone devices and the Myschool software for your laptops and computers. Please go ahead and start practicing. Now to question 172. Fill the gap labeled 15. A, rules, B, sanctions, C, order, and D, discipline. Again, we have to look at the sentence in which it is used. The sentence states, in some cases, the Security Council can resort to imposing dash or even authorize the use of force to maintain or restore international peace and security. So the best option to fill in this gap is sanctions. So sanctions are those punishments that is imposed on a member nation that doesn't follow the rules that is stated in the UN Charter. So whenever they break the rules of the organization or they do not follow some of the agreements that have been made by the international organization, sanctions or punishments are imposed on that member nation. So option B, sanctions, is the answer to this question. I believe you're enjoying this content. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, tap on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos. Question 173. This question is based on Kabir Alabi Garba's the Lekki headmaster. The school nurse, Mrs. Titi, fetched a handkerchief and offered it to him because A, she always went about with an extra handkerchief. B, the physics teacher, Pastor Okwewande, had prayed over it. C, it was all she could do at that moment. And D, she didn't have any drug immediately available. So the answer to this question is option C, it was all she could do at that moment. So this entire incident can be found on page 5 of the novel, where Mr. Bikbo Adewale was crying in front of the students at the morning assembly. And then all the teachers gathered around him, including Nurse Titi and the vice principal, to find out what was going on. When they could not do anything to console him, Mrs. Titi offered him a handkerchief because that was all she could do at that moment. Option C, it was all she could do at that moment, is the answer to this question. Question 174. This question is based on Kabir Alabi Garba's the Lekki headmaster. Retipism is found everywhere means A, excessive official formality is everywhere. B, red tapeworm is found everywhere. C, red tapes are everywhere. And D, official formality is everywhere. So the answer to this question is option A, excessive official formality is everywhere. And we can see this in chapter 10 of the novel, where they narrate the entire ordeal that Mr. Adewale Adebukbo had to go through in order to get a passport. He talked about how when it comes to getting a passport, you have to navigate several different hurdles, and even for those who try to do it online, it is quite difficult for them to do so because there are different formalities that they have to go through. So it is usually better to do so physically at their office. So this entire ordeal about getting passports was described in chapter 10 of the novel. It expressed how there is not just official formality that is associated with the civil service in Nigeria, but excessive official formality. So it's not that there is official formality everywhere, because that is characteristic of every civil service all around the world. But it is the fact that there is excessive official formality. This is characteristic of the Nigerian civil service. So option A, excessive official formality is everywhere, is the answer to this question. Question 175. This question is based on Kabir Garba's the Lekki headmaster. If you beat my height, you can't beat my eyes is a statement by A, Audu, B, Ayesoro, C, Grace, and D, Gbekbo. The answer to this question is option D, Gbekbo. So Gbekbo always says this whenever he's supervising a student during an examination. He always says that he's created to be a principal, that because of his 6-footer height and prominent eyeballs, it's very difficult for the students to cheat during their examinations. So this is why he always says, if you beat my height, you can't beat my eyes. So So the answer to this question is option D, Bekpo. Question 176. How did Shola and her husband travel to London from Manchester every day? Option A, by rail, B, by road, C, by sea, and D, by air. So the answer to this question is option A, by rail. And we can find this on page 16 of the novel, where Shola talked about how they had to live in Manchester because of the high rents in London. So their trip from Manchester to London for work usually takes 30 minutes every day, but they still have to do that anyway because it's easier to pay for apartments in Manchester than in London. So option A, by rail, is the answer to this question. Do you have a question? If you do, please feel free to go down to the link in the description below. This takes you to the Myschool website where you can ask your question and a solution will be provided to you within a short period of time. Now on to question 177. Yes, that is what you paid the extra amount for. If you follow the normal channel, you would still be there with them. To whom was this said? Option A, Bekpo, B, Mrs. Ladele, C, Tai, and D, Mr. Ogo. So the answer to this question is option A, Bekpo. So this was said to Bekpo when he went to a passport office in Ibadan to renew his passport. He had to pay extra amounts of money to a particular official working around the passport office named Tai. Tai was working in a cyber cafe close to the passport office. It was the one who led him to an official within the passport office building who helped him to expedite the process of renewing his passport. So option A, Bekpo, is the answer to this question. Do you have a better explanation or solution to any of these questions? If you do, please go down to the comment section below, indicate the question number and the solution you'd like to share. Question 178. So you have taken your madness to this level. Where was this statement made? A, in Bekpo's house, B, at the airport, C, at Stardom School, and D, at Bizway School. So the answer to this question is option D, at Bizway School. This statement was made by Mr. Egi Meko, the director of Bizway Group of School. So it was made to Mr. Adewale Adebekpo. After a PTA meeting, one of the parents had brought up the grammatical error in the name of the school. Mr. Adewale Adebekpo had earlier discussed this with Mr. Egi Meko. He had told him that it's meant to be called Bizway Group of Schools and not Bizway Group of School. When one of the parents at the PTA meeting brought this up with Mr. Egi Meko, he had thought that Mr. Adewale Adebekpo had discussed this with the parents, and this is why he made the statement, so you have taken your madness to this level. So option D, at Bizway School, is the answer to this question. Question 179. Bekpo considered establishing a school because A, he considered it lucrative, B, his friends advised him to, C, his father was a headmaster, and D, of his passion for education. So the answer to this question is option D, of his passion for education, and we can find this on page 12 of the novel, where Mr. Bekpo was contemplating about how it has always been his dream to establish a school here in Nigeria. So he said this because he believes that he has gained a lot of experience in teaching and school management, and that he also had this passion of molding the young. So this is his reason for contemplating establishing a school. So option D, of his passion for education, is the answer to this question. Question 180. The big scream diverted Mrs. Ladele's attention from a movie on A, socio-economic problems, B, politics, C, money ritual, and D, infidelity in marriage. So the answer to this question is option D, infidelity in marriage. And we can find this on page 22 of the novel, where Mrs. Ladele was watching a movie, where in the movie, the doctor was about to perform a C-section on her best friend. So she also discovered that her best friend was impregnated by her husband. So the movie was essentially talking about infidelity in marriage. It may feel like the answer is option A, socio-economic problems, because while the movie was going on, Mrs. Ladele was having thoughts about the way government hospitals are run in the country. She was talking about how there are large crowds at government hospitals. So this was not what was happening in the movie. This was just Mrs. Ladele's thoughts as she was watching the movie. So socio-economic problems is not the answer to this question. The answer to this question is option D, infidelity in marriage. Question 181. Bekpo's retirement plan suggests that he was A, an unambitious man, B, an unreasonable man, C, a vain fellow, and D, a thoughtful man. So the answer to this question is option B, a thoughtful man, and we can find the answer to this question on page 11 of the novel, where he was talking about his plans after retirement, that when he reaches the age of 55, he should be able to have a business. So this is the reason he has been attending entrepreneurship seminars, so that when he reaches that age, he should already be able to become an entrepreneur and pay taxes to the country. So this makes him a thoughtful man. He's not an unambitious man because here he has dreams. He's not an unreasonable man or a vain fellow. He's a thoughtful man. Option D is the answer to this question. Question 182. What did Bekpo believe was crucial for success in the transportation business? Option A, finding trustworthy drivers. B, having money to bribe policemen. C, finding expert drivers. And D, getting a quality vehicle. So the answer to this question is option A, finding trustworthy drivers. So Bekpo believed that drivers here in our Nigerian society lacked good business practices and were untrustworthy. So this made this transportation business an unreliable business for him. He also talked about how a lot of other staff at Stardom schools had tried their hands on this business and failed. So all of this prevented him from venturing into the transportation business. We can find all of this on page 12 of the novel. Option A, finding trustworthy drivers, is the answer to this question. I believe you're enjoying this content. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, tap on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos.